welcome to In Conversation with Hemali. Selma, my guest today, is trained as an actor and has lived both in Singapore and in London. In between acting jobs and auditions, she would babysit and host kid parties on the side. Kid parties, yes. And when COVID struck, Selma returned to Singapore. Her families in London, both her families and friends in London wanted her to babysit somehow, through Zoom. Through some trials and errors, she created her own program of activities to keep kids entertained over Zoom. Thus, the virtual babysitter was born. You heard me right. A virtual babysitter she is. Welcome, Selma. My screen seems to be dazzling today with this young, beautiful lady gracing my channel.
Mine too. I just need the side. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right, Selma, I'm going to straight jump into my question session, and that would be, tell us a little more about yourself and what virtual babysitter is all about.
So I am 25 this year. I am a freelance actor. So I act on stage, try and do a bit of TV, voiceover work, and on the side, I would always do other sorts of jobs like teaching or doing kids parties. So just kind of freelance actor life. You kind of always have to do other things while you're waiting for auditions or for gigs. So I went to SOTA in Singapore, and then I did a gap year here where I was auditioning for stuff. I was acting in the theater scene, doing the TV, just trying out different things. And then when I realized, hey, I think I can do this freelance actor life, after my gap year, I auditioned for drama school in the UK and I got in. And I did 3 years of drama school in the UK, and then I did 1 year out, just learning to be a freelance actor there. But in March 2020, COVID-19 hit the UK like a truck. So the UK was going to go into lockdown. So I had a choice of whether I would rather be locked down in Singapore or in the UK. And I decided, which I think is a good choice because things are starting to, things started to get better in Singapore a lot quicker than the UK. So I came back here, looked for, came here to be a freelance actor. But how the virtual babysitter was born was because of that. Because when I came back to Singapore, I worked as a babysitter in London. So when I came back to Singapore, all my babysitting families were like, we still need you to entertain our kids somehow. They're like, do anything you want, just somehow an hour a day. So I was like, okay, this is a challenge. So I started playing games with the kids, doing story time, just doing whatever it took to make sure they didn't go and bug their parents, just to keep entertained. So then I started doing scavenger hunts because the parents like, well, I don't want them to be glued to the screen. I want them to be really active, doing like active stuff. Because in the UK, some people weren't really allowed to go out and it was cold. And so, and then the virtual babysitter was born. It was an
but I'm just thinking, virtual babysitting is so different from really, being with a child. And because to me, I understand babysitter as somebody who's going to be there, present, looking after the kids' needs. So how do you manage to do that, away on the screen?
Well, I think, I would say, I think people kind of underestimate how kids these days are so used to gadgets. I don't know if that's a good thing. But everyone uses gadgets now, especially, kids as well.
They do, yeah.
So they would sit still and be with the gadget. And of course, like I don't babysit like infants, obviously need care there. But I have babies like 2.5-year-olds on Zoom who still need a bit of supervision. So the parent is there watching them. But I think because of COVID, some people couldn't get babysitters or help or nannies. Because of the whole restrictions and you're not allowed to visit each other's homes and just wasn't safe. So for me in London, I would have to travel to my babysitting house because I didn't live with them. And that was a huge risk. The trains in the UK, everyone was wearing masks. So even my babysitting was quite anxious about me traveling. So it just came like, it was the second best thing we could do. The babysitter couldn't be there in person. We just had to adapt to the babysitter being on screen.
Yeah, interesting. So how did this idea kind of come to you? Did you know of somebody who was doing it, or how did it come?
It just started when my families in the UK said, I need you to help me babysit the kid on Zoom. So for one, I called him every day for an hour and I would hang out with him, play different games with him. And then I thought it was quite fun. And he was really engaged. And the mom would text me after every session. She would, you saved me today. I could have an hour break, or thank you. I could do my Zoom meeting in peace. You know, and, oh, okay. I thought I was just, I didn't know. I thought it was like, oh no, is this going to be another headache for them? Like, oh, they have to set up the Zoom dies. And he's like, I can't hear Selma. Like, all the technical stuff, right? You think like that's going to be a hassle, but they just set up the iPad. They start the meeting. They're like, see you in an hour. And the kid's just there. Hi. So it was I had never heard of virtual babysitting before. To me, it was just like it was just babysitting on Zoom. So when people used to ask me like, oh, what are you doing during circuit breaker? I was actually also working as a temperature taker at cold storage because I just could not bear not having a job. I was not okay with staying at home. I was so bored. So I just applied to everything possible and I worked as a temperature taker. So people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm doing this and I babysit on Zoom. And they're like, what's that? And they found it more interesting than I did. So it's like, yeah, just, you know, talk to the kid on Zoom. They're like, wait, how? I was like, you just talk to them like how you talk to your friend. And I think when people started giving me all these weird reactions that I realized like, oh, okay, this is actually quite different.
So do you think this would be a kind of a generation gap? Because my age group wouldn't understand, you know, I mean, definitely when I read the article, I read your article in the Straits Times, the leading newspaper in Singapore. And when I read about you, I was like, what, how can somebody do that? Right. And that's what made me read up more about you and, you know, try to connect with you. Yeah.
Because the thing is like, it was even friends my age who were like, what? How do you babysit on Zoom? It wasn't really like a age gap generational thing. It was literally everyone had a weird reaction to it. And I thought it was normal. I was like, yeah, you know, it's like FaceTiming your friend, but you do it with a 6-year-old. You play games with them.
So tell me, Selma, you have done babysitting personally, you know, sitting across with a child, and now you're doing it through Zoom. Which one do you think has been better in terms of, you know, being able to get across to the child?
I think they're both so different. Obviously, when you are there in person, you are there to take the child, make sure they eat, get their schedule going. When I virtual babysitting, it's obviously like maximum an hour because I mean it's not fun for a kid to sit in front of the screen for the whole day. But it's just different. It's different modes of babysitting. One is because I'm there, because the parents are not there. The second is another mode of entertainment for them if no one else is there. That's kind of the difference.
I understand.
So I can't really compare because they are different.
Right. So Selma, I read that you are also doing a TV show for the children here in Singapore. Could you share with us about that one?
So last year, I think in November or a bit earlier than that, the Singapore like TV acting scene started to open up. So like people could start shooting commercials. People were allowed to be on like film sets. So when that started happening, I started like emailing production houses, auditioning for things, saying like, hi, I'm a freelance actor. I'm back in Singapore now. I'm willing to do any work, auditioning. Like, let me know if there's anything that I'm suited for. And I met this who said, oh, we're actually casting for this new kids TV show. Don't know if you're interested. And I said, no, I am. Like, you need to freelance actor. Hosting is also something that you would do. You know, it's not just narrow down to acting. You would do hosting, voiceover jobs. So I auditioned for it. And I even said, like, I babysit and I virtually babysit. And I said, I think I know how to engage kids on screen.
Sure.
So that happened and I got casted in it. So it's just it's a show called Mind Blown. It's on MediaCorp. We had episode 3. So we're once, it is. I think it's pretty cool. So the reason why I thought it was good, or I knew it was good, is because I sent it to my babysitting kids. And I said, what do you guys think? Like, they are the real judge. They're the kids, the judges of the show. And they were like, and so much. It was so cool. When's the next episode? So I was like, okay, cool. I think, you know, the show is good job. But yeah, so the show is basically called Mind Blown, CNA, produced by CNA, Channel 5. And it's basically a show that kind of, it's not just a science show, but they like investigate about myths, different topics, or taboos. So the first episode we did was, why aren't there any Singaporean astronauts?
Oh, really?
Which
Wow.
such a cool question.
It
so
is.
I felt this kind of took it a step further with the stuff they make kids think about.
Interesting.
I learned.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing this. And I would like you to share an anecdote, of something that that was very interesting that you did with the kids and how they reacted, or maybe, while you're doing your films or something. Yeah.
So for the virtual babysitter, something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I think one interesting thing was, I was with my babysitting kid and he was like, I don't know what we're going to do today. And he started telling me a story. Like, why don't we make this into a movie? And he was like, yeah, well, sure. Oh, and I said, I'll just record your screen and I'll direct you.
Wow.
So I'll be like, okay, now bring the iPad to the bathroom and like fall down. And as he was narrating the story, I was just trying to record him doing all this acting. And he's like, okay, now I'm going to act. I'm waking up, going to have breakfast, and he'll go downstairs to the kitchen and pretend to do his breakfast. And then during that session, it wasn't even intentional. It was just like two friends hanging out, going like, what are we going to do today? And he's like, should we make a movie? Like, yeah. And I was like, oh, we're going to do. And then edit it and send it to you later.
And it turned out into a movie, really? I mean, between the two of you?
He edits it on iMovie, but he like.
Oh. That is so lovely. I'm sure he had a lovely time.
Yeah, well, it's just, I think with my virtual babysitting sessions, it started out with like, I don't see the kids I babysit as, oh, here, this is me entertaining you, or I'm taking care of you. I find it fun as well. So with him, it was like, oh gosh, let's do this thing. And we try to create like this little movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, an accident. I didn't even I went into, so this is when I was doing my trial and error of what works.
Right.
So sessions like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I have this story. I was like, oh, let's make it into a movie. Yeah. So it just felt like a play date.
Yeah, I understand. Wow, that's kind of, I can make out how much you enjoy doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So Selma, what would be your advice to all the youngsters who are trying to establish themselves in this big world?
So during circuit breaker, I was having problems as like, what am I going to do? The whole acting industry is shut. How am I going to support myself as a freelancer? Do I just want to do freelance jobs? Like, what else do I want to do? And I think that's something that kind of has, whatever degree you have, whether it's an arts degree or academic degree, or, you want to figure out like what makes you happy, or what is it that you want to do in life? And that's a big question.
Yeah.
So I think for freelancers or for artists, when COVID happened, the whole art scene shut down. It was like, you had no work, nothing. So I was listening to this podcast. So then I was like, okay, let me try and do something non-arts related. I was like looking at skills for business or tech courses. I was like, okay, should I do something else in the meantime? Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast by, I think, a Singaporean entrepreneur. I can't remember who it was, but he said, do something that you know. So he was like, if you want an entrepreneur or do a startup or something, he's like, don't try and do something that you have no clue about. Look at yourself and see, like, what do I know already? Wow. And I thought that was inspiring, because I always felt like, oh, my background is not enough. I need to go into business or tech. But, the whole virtual babysitter, it was just, it's something that I've always done, but I never really thought much of. I always thought of it as my side job while I acted or auditioned. But yeah, it's something that I knew kind of well, and I'm still hoping to turn it into something bigger. Right. So I think just to anyone, just like, I guess, trust yourself. Don't doubt that what you know is not enough. It is enough. You just have to investigate it, and explore and experiment.
Right, wonderful. Thank you, Selma, for that lovely message from such a young person. And to my viewers, isn't it interesting that she says that try to know yourself and pick up on things that you know that you can do further ahead. Nothing stops anyone. It was a complete pleasure talking to you. And viewers, again, you may follow or read up more about the virtual babysitter at the link provided in the description. And yeah, Selma, wishing you the best as you continue babysitting, as you continue your acting, as well as hosting shows. You are lovely, and may you have a great life ahead.
Thank you so much. You too. I look forward to the episode and the rest of your other episodes.
Thank you very much, Selma.